Hello everyone, Gail Gunn here with Energy Organizing, back for another daily talk topic. This week I wanted to share with you more about the big why. And why stands for what it is that I do, how it came to be that I do it, and the yearning that I have to guide others and to share it with people. And so the first category that I want to talk about is space utilization. I don't know that space utilization is a thing other than the thing that I do or the way that I talk about it. If there is anyone out there doing it, I would love to hear from them. But it was something that came to be for me quite a few years ago, actually. And it's one of those things where how our space is set up, how it functions, how it feels, how it flows, these are all really big factors in recognizing that the effect that our space has on our overall well-being. And so, I wanted to share, in thinking about this particular topic, space utilization is something that I've been doing for a very long time, and it was a term that I came up with, when it first occurred to me that this was something that I could do. I was working. I was working in retail. I was working for this little tiny candy store called Fuzzywigs. It was a part-time job. It was next door to the retail location that I was working in. That at the time was my full-time job, and this goes all the way back to, gosh, I want to say 96, 97, 98, something in that range. And I was very close to the woman who was managing the store and another one of the associates. And anyway, long story short, I would always go in the tiniest little stock room, and I would always go in there and try to figure out, like, it would just frustrate me because you couldn't access anything, you couldn't get to anything. And I remember, kind of always going in there and scanning the room and visually looking at it and thinking there's got to be something that we can do to maximize or utilize or optimize, like any of those words that you think of when you think of space utilization. And I remember asking the store manager if I could rearrange the stock room, and she was like, "You're not going to come up with anything I haven't tried," but she was like, "Have at it." And I remember before I even did it, I said, if this works or when this works, and I'm able to rearrange this to make a difference, the way that it functions, the way that it feels, I'll someday go into business as a space utilization specialist. I remember using those words distinctly because it was kind of like, I thought about it, I'm like, what is that? Like, I don't even know what a space utilization specialist is. So anyway, so I went ahead and took a couple hours and I rearranged the entire stock room. And again, it was a pretty small stock room, but it still took about a half a day. And I just repositioned the shelving and just kind of reworked the way that it was set up. And when I was done, I showed the manager what I was able to do, and she was shocked. I just remember her being like, "Oh my God, what did you do?" She's like, "How did you do this?" She said, she said, it feels bigger, it feels more open, easier to access things. And I mean, I didn't increase the size of the stockroom. I didn't really get rid of anything. I just repositioned it. And that was when the whole concept of space utilization for me was born. And so, it was one of those things where, it really wasn't it wasn't something that you go to school for. I mean, professional organizing had actually only just come out probably around that time, but I was so young, it wasn't on my radar. And so, I don't know, it was just something that I always had in the back of my mind, that it was something that I would do someday, or that I knew I had a skill in, and would be curious to see when or if it ever came into play. And so, throughout the course of, since then, throughout the course of my careers and things like that, it has come up in several different places and is now the main body of work that I do. Because I do have a different topic for each day, and I want to keep these short, I'm not going to overlap right now, but it will come back up. The space utilization is a factor in all of the categories that I work in, which is why I wanted to start with it. So, space utilization really is focusing on, space utilization isn't about organizing, it isn't about design or staging. It's really just about being able to take a look at how our space feels, how our space functions, how our space flows, and how it's set up, and, sort of what I talked about in the beginning, that space utilization. How are we utilizing the space? Are there ways that we can optimize it? Are there ways that we can maximize it? I don't think of space as wasted space. A lot of times you might hear people say, "Oh, that's wasted space." It's not wasted, it's just underutilized. There are other ways in which we can use this space. And so whether it's storage areas, whether it's whether it is design ideas, whatever it is, space utilization is about being able to take a look at how your space is set up and helping it to, helping you to set it up in a way that reflects a space that helps you feel rejuvenated, relaxed, and refreshed. So I hope that helps answer some of the questions you might have about space utilization. If you do have additional questions, please share in the comments what questions come to mind. What resonates for you, or what do you think of when you hear space utilization? What sort of things do you think of, and or would you want further clarification on to know if space utilization is something that you're looking for? And be sure to stay tuned. I do have 4 more topics to cover this week and in the next series, or in these next sets of videos, to talk about organizing, professional organizing, life coaching, design and staging, and the kind of left field entrepreneur topic. So I look forward to sharing those each day with you. And so like I said, stay tuned for tomorrow, where we're going to talk about organizing, where that came from, and when that started, and what the big why is behind that. So thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for joining. We'll see you on the next video.